In this tutorial, I'll be talking you through how to go from this version of My Dog Jack website to this second version. Okay, so some of the things we're going to be looking at are subdividing this top box into a left top and a right top so that we can actually have the image and the writing sitting next to each other, and we can say float left, float right, very similar to what we did down here. What we will do is we'll use the top box as like a kind of mini container, and then we'll have these two dividers in there. We'll talk about how to get the writing bigger here and also how to move it further across the right. We're going to add in padding and margins, which is going to allow the writing to move away from the top here and in from the sides. Okay, so that's what we're going to use padding for. We'll also be able to push the image in here. Okay, so we're going to do a 10 padding all the way around there, so top, left and right. That's going to move that image inside the grey box. And then finally we'll look at also add in some margins here as well, which is going to allow us to see the actual container, which is a kind of dark green colour. Okay, so let's have a look at how we're going to do that. Now over here I've got separated up my HTML and my CSS. Okay, so we can actually see what we're doing here. So what I want to do is I want to start by making two new containers, okay, for the top left and top right. Okay, so rather than kind of reinventing everything, I'm going to start off by using the top box here. So I'm just going to copy that and paste that in. Okay, and obviously I'm going to divide this, I'm going to call this top left, and I'm going to make that width let's say 100, because the picture's only going to be 100 by 100. And then we'll do the same again here, but this time we'll make a top right, and we're going to make this 700 wide. Okay, so that they can sit there. Now obviously for them to be able to sit next to each other, we need to make sure that this is going to say float left, and we'll say that this one here will float right. Okay, so they will so those two new dividers will be inside this top box, and one's going to float left, one will float right. They both add up to 800, so they should be the same height and will fit. Okay, now obviously I need to now add that into my HTML. So here's where my top box is. So I'm going to go under here. Okay, I'm just going to use a tab to help me so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to make a divider ID. And that's going to be equal to, and this will be top, let's start with top left. Okay, and that's where the image is going to go in. So I'm going to keep that divider just on the same line there. And I'm just going to write in here, image source. I'm just going to leave that blank for a second. Okay, and that closes off that top left. And now I need to just put in my top right here. So again, div ID equals, and this is going to be called top right. That's opening the box, and that's closing that box. And obviously I want to finally here close that top box. So I've now got within top box two new dividers, one here which is going to have my image in here, and I'm going to call mine minijack.jpg. Now obviously I'll need to find that a picture, a suitable picture, sort of small picture, 100 by 100. It's also going to be save it into the same folder as the other one. So I'm just checking that matches that. So it's images / that's right. So that's going to access that picture and then close that. And then on here we're going to go to top right, which we're going to have the My Dog Jack. So let's just go save all there, because that's going to save both changes there. And let's go and have a look at how that's going to look. So let's refresh. So there we go. Okay, so it's already changed. You can see I've now got the image in there, and I've got my writing up here. Okay, now let's have a quick look. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make this one. So we're starting at the top and working our way down. So let's have another look here. So the writing's got to be much bigger. Okay, so how are we doing that? The styling here is for a H2. So now to go into my CSS, find where my H2 is. It's here. And I'm just going to say font size. And I'm going to try, let's try 50 pixels, see what happens with 50 pixels. Okay, I can always adjust it. And file, save, and refresh, and there we go. Okay, so that's much more like what we want. Now the next thing to look at is that that's over to the right hand side of the box. So I'm just going to go here into H2, and where it says text align center, I'm just going to change that to right. Okay, and again, file, save. Always remember to save and then refresh, and that's now pushed over to the right. Now it's pushed it to the right, however, it's kind of, I want it in the way, okay? So this is what I want to do here is I'm actually going to use my padding. So I'm actually going to pad that in, okay? I'm going to say, let's try 50. We can always adjust it. I'm going to bring that in, okay? And that's going to hopefully move that in. So going to my top right box here, and I'm going to add in padding right, okay? And let's go 50 pixels. Let's see what happens. Again, file, save, and refresh. Okay, so it has brought it in a little bit. Okay, what has happened is it's caused basically the whole top box to kind of unravel. So what I need to do is I need to think, well, hang on, when I add a padding in, it counts towards the width. So I need to wind the width back from being 700. I'm going to take that off and make that 650. Okay, and file, save, and again let's refresh that. Great, that's better. So it's now back into the top box and it's looking a little bit more like where I want it to be. Okay, alright, and again if I have a look, it's actually up the way, isn't it? So there must be padding on the bottom. Okay, and that's what's causing that to push up the way. Maybe let's try 30. Okay, so again into the top right, and I'm going to try padding bottom, and I'm going to say 30. Now again, now that I've realized that when I add there, I've got to adjust this bit, so I'm going to make that 70 so that they both add up to the original height. Okay, so that's again, they go file and save and refresh. Okay. Right, interestingly that doesn't seem to have done anything. Okay, so we'll maybe have to come back to that and have a look later and see what that's doing. We're going to move on. Okay, so the next thing we'll look at is starting to try and show the background. So actually container. So I'm going to go into container and we're going to make that a dark green color. Okay, so that's fine. Where containers? So containers here. Okay, and I'm going to say background color. And I'm going to say dark green. Okay, so if I go file and save and refresh. Now, it has changed. Unfortunately, I can't actually see it because these things are all covering up. So what I need to do is I need to put some margins in. Okay, so I'm going to go to the, let's try the left box first of all. Okay, and I want to have here just a right margin. That's going to show that little bit there, and a margin on the top. So I want top and right of this box, and this one here is going to have top and left. Okay, so let's have a look at doing that. So I'm going to go to the left box here, and I'm going to say margin, and it's going to be to the right, so margin right, and I'm going to say 10 pixels. And I need to make sure that I take that off the width, so I'm going to make that down to 150. And let's go file and save and refresh, and that's now added that strip along there. Okay, so now I want to add one on the top. So back to the left box, and I'm going to say margin top this time, and again 10 px's, 10 pixels. Short for, and I need to bring that off the height, so that height's going to come down to 790 to compensate for that extra part there, and that's added that little bit in there. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same here with the right box. Okay, so let's go with the right box, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little bit sneaky, and I'm just going to grab those two bits there and bring them in. Okay, and paste that in. And I need to, this time instead of saying the margin right, it's going to be margin left. Okay, and I need to compensate again the width down to 790, and I need to bring the width in by again 10 there. Okay, so let's go File and Save with those new changes. And there we go, that's brought that in and down. Now, having a quick look here, I don't think we actually need that left margin, the fact that the other one's doing this. So I'm going to get rid of that margin there. And again, I just need to add that back up to 640. So let's have a look at that change. And you will need to sort of a little bit of experimentation with the numbers. Okay, so that's looking better. So now I have that T shape there. Okay, so I'm now going to have a go at doing the padding on both of these boxes to bring both the writing in and the images in. Okay, so let's go to start off again with the left boxes. And this time we're going to say in here padding. And we're going to do the padding from the top first of all, and we're going to say 40, because it was quite, the writing started quite far into the box, and I just need to remove that from the height. So let's bring that down to 750. File, save, and refresh, and that's brought the writing down. Great. So now I need my padding left and padding right, and we'll do 10 on both sides. And this time obviously off the width, I'm going to bring 20 off that, so down to 130. So File and Save and refresh. That's now brought that in. That's looking good. Okay, and now I can apply that same skills over here. Okay, to the right box. So again, let's go to here and let's bring in. And now I wonder if I can be a little bit sneaky and just grab those 3 lines of code there. Let's see if we can grab that and just pop that in there. Now we will need to compensate, obviously. So let's have a look. So we're just going to add 40 to the top. I don't think we want to go 40 to the top. I think just 10 to the top. So 10 to the top. So that means to bring the width in by 30. Oh, sorry, the height in by 1, so that's 780, and then I've got both left and right, so I need to bring that in by 20. Okay, let's try that, see how it looks. So File, Save, and refresh. Okay, that's brought that in and there. Now, what's happening with this picture here is that it has kind of gone off the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to adjust that picture. So I can do that in the HTML. And I can go here to the width. Here we go. Look, so we've got so that's 620. Let's just bring that down by 620. Let's try 620 and see how that looks. So File, Save, and refresh. Much better. Okay, so it's now inside that box. Let's have last couple of changes. Let's have a look. Let's make the writing here white as it is on the design. So that should be white writing. So let's bring that. So how to do that is going to be on the styling for the right box. So we're going to the right box here. Now this is just going to be color, note American spelling, and I'm just going to say white. Okay, and that's talking about the text color. So File, Save, refresh. There we go. So that's now in white. And let's have a look. Now, I'm not 100% happy with this image up here because it sort of looks like it kind of overlapping. So again, like I adjusted this image, I'm going to do the same with that one. So let's go back to my HTML and into here. So there's my images. So I can just say, let's do width. And let's try 80. We can always just adjust these. And let's say height again. Let's make that 80 and see how that looks. So File, Save, and refresh. Okay, I think we've gone maybe a little bit too much there. Let's try and bring that to 100. See how that looks. So again, File, Save, and refresh. Much better. That's now kind of sitting on there, and I'm sort of much happier how that's fitting. Okay, I hope that's been useful for you in being able to work out. So we've learned about padding, which is space inside the box, margin, which is space on the outside of the box, and how to again kind of create so that you can have left and right by making more dividers within other dividers to be able to get this sort of left and right using the float.